Hey, Ohio State may not be number one in the country, man, but they've been looking like the number one team. Now, they haven't played that team yet. I know they just knocked off Iowa and they dominated, but they are winning by almost an average of 40 points a game. They got a dominant defense. They got weapons on offense. What do you expect them to do when they have to go into Audacy Stadium? Always a tough place to play against Oregon this weekend.
Yeah, and I think that's a great place to start. It's going to be a phenomenal atmosphere. I've been fortunate to call a couple games up there, and it really is a crowd that can affect what goes on the field. You heard one of Ohio State's offensive linemen saying he doesn't like primetime games because he sees all the eyes on them there. Well, you're going to have the eyes, you're going to have the crowd, and you're going to have Jordan Burch and that defense bearing down and trying to cause problems. But I think, Mike, for me, the reason that I'm so heartened by what I've seen from Ohio State has nothing to do with Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith, Will Howard in this offense, or even Jack Sawyer and the guys on defense that have been phenomenal. It's the offensive line for Ohio State this year. It was the biggest question I had about them coming into this season. And so far, watching their production, blocking for Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, that are two of the best in the country, they've been able to reestablish a line of scrimmage with Chip Kelly now coming over as the architect for that run game here as the offensive coordinator this year. I think that's been the difference for them so far this season. And it's the reason I went from before the season picking Oregon to win the Big Ten. I now going into this game and picking Ohio State to win because I think that group is that much improved.
Yeah, I mean, once again, and defensively, offensively looking good. Jeremiah Smith, man, that freshman is phenomenal, bro. What do you like about his game overall?
Yeah, I just think, and you see right there, that catch in the Iowa game was kind of emblematic of a receiver who's so strong despite his age going up there, and you see basketball-like ability to go and use his body and shield on catches. He's obviously got the explosive play potential. And I think when you look at him and Ryan Williams at Alabama, the thing that's so cool and encouraging about these young guys is no moment has looked too big for them so far. They've been able to go out there and shoulder the load in a lot of cases as the top option or close to it on each of their teams. And so to go along with that composure, the dynamic ability that both of those guys have, sky's really the limit. We're watching two, future top 15 draft picks right now as 17 and 18-year-olds.
All right, so Oregon, also a huge game for them as well. I mean, they started off the season, especially against teams like Boise State, barely beating Boise State. Boise State's a good team this year. They probably got the Heisman Trophy leader right now in Ashton Jeanty, right? But over the last couple of weeks, they have looked better, but still turn the football over in critical moments. I know Dylan Gabriel's been outstanding when it comes to accuracy this year, but how critical is this game for Oregon? Like you did mention before this season, you picked Oregon to actually beat Ohio State going in. What has changed your mind, and what will a win do for Oregon if they are able to knock off Ohio State on Saturday?
It would be massive for Oregon coming in year one in a new conference and being able to go and punch the biggest bully on the yard in the mouth. We know Ohio State and Michigan have been the teams that have been at the forefront of this conference, trailed by Penn State for most of recent history. And so it would go a long way. And I think for me, you mentioned those early shots in the beginning of the season, right? Close game against Idaho, close game against Boise State, big explosives given up on defense, which we're now seeing might just happen for everyone who plays against Ashton Jeanty. They made some big changes on their offensive line going back to the Oregon State game, a rivalry game that got played in September for the first time in the history of that series. And since then, they went from giving up, I believe, 7 sacks in the first 2 games to none since that shift against Oregon State. And so that group up front is going to have its best punch ready for the Ohio State defensive front. I think it's just going to be, can they push the ball downfield at all? Some of the weapons in this offense, it's been low and slow. They eat up a ton of yards the same way they did last year with Bo Nix, but there hasn't been that over-the-top capability that offense last year, which averaged almost 10 points per game better than the offense this year. That's going to be the real key. Can Oregon find some explosive playmaking against an Ohio State defense that's certainly got guys at every level that can do it?
That's going to be a huge game. Absolutely. The toughest test for Ohio State so far this season going in Austin. If they do that, of course, they could be the new number 1 team this week in the AP polls coming out.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern for free.